All right, so we are here with Grant Lease, who is a senior, and he is one of the leaders of a new student group called the Black and Blue Jay on campus. They are I believe, a satirical now news page or kind of blog, I guess you could say.
Publication, sort of the general term.
Publication, sort of the general term. But we're going to talk a little bit with Grant today about the Black and Blue Jay, how it got started, why it's kind of back in place right now, and where it's trying to go. So I guess a good first question would be, how did the Black and Blue Jay originally get started?
Well, it's when I came into it, it's more of how it got restarted than anything else. Because actually, the Black and Blue Jay is, in its original form, it's almost 100 years old. The Hopkins mascot that is the Blue Jay, that actually came from the Black and Blue Jay. At first, it was just formed as a little bit of wordplay, and then I guess Hopkins liked it, so they sort of ripped it off, and now everyone thinks it's the other way around. But they existed, so it's almost been 100 years. They've done print publications almost exclusively, and then about 2 years ago was, I think, the last print publication. And so at that point, I was a freshman, and I had gone to like one or two meetings, and it was fun, but we never ended up publishing anything, so I was kind of bummed out. And then it sort of fizzled, and I didn't think about it. But then, come like late last year, so was that spring 2014, I decided that, well, I realized in my own life that I really wanted to get into comedy writing, and I wanted an outlet for that. So first I saw the newsletter on Facebook, and that inspired me to sort of look back into Black and Blue Jay stuff and see if I could kick something off. We tried to publish at the very end of last year, and that was kind of a disaster because we didn't really get started until May. And at that point, like, everyone's in finals, everyone's already got their groups way established, so that sort of fizzled. But come the start of this year, there's the sort of the beginning of the year rush. All the freshmen come in, and they're very excited to get into student groups on campus. And so we took advantage of that. We did a lot of sort of like pounding social media and the today's announcements type stuff. And eventually people started coming to our meetings. So we figured, since we didn't have a budget anymore, it'd be easier to just publish online, because it does cost a lot of money to get a print publication out there and circulate like the newsletter does. So online is essentially free, minus the cost of like our domain name, which we bought for the course of a year and we'll renew. But that's basically the story of how we went from not publishing in print to actually publishing online.
Got it. So that sounds great. So are you guys actually a group at this point, or is it still getting kind of restarted and brought up and gaining membership?
Well, we're definitely a group. We're always willing to accept new members. We really have no barriers to entry except for coming to the actual meeting. So all are definitely welcome. We're an official student group in terms of like campus life and being registered and all that. So yeah, we've got our feet planted. We feel pretty established, and we're publishing a solid 2 to 3, if not more, articles per week. So pretty solid schedule. We're happy about it.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a great start. So I've heard, and we actually also have another group member here, David Angelis, who is a junior, and you can comment on this as well, David. I've heard that the group meetings can be sometimes funny, and I don't know if either of you want to comment on this or take it away.
They're pretty funny.
Funny like a clown.
Yeah. We have a bunch of people who come in, and what we do, we have the laugh test. That's how we decide that something's really funny, is whenever somebody, well, first, it really begins with a headline. We have a list of headlines, and then we go through the headlines, read them aloud, and see how many laughs it gets, just among ourselves. And the ones that do really well, we say, this deserves an article. And then somebody writes an article in its first draft, and we come to another meeting where we read it aloud in front of everyone. We do another laugh test, and we see what are the best parts of the article, what could be changed, and what could be added. And yeah, sometimes it's just throwing ideas around. It's really, really relaxed environment. So
yeah, it's super, super lighthearted. We try to keep it as casual as possible. There's nothing more backwards than like a hopefully satirical, funny group that has these just like rigid ass meetings.
It is pretty true.
Yeah, so that sounds great. So in addition, you guys mentioned that it is kind of an open group right now. Do you try to, help build on, I guess, our comedic standing? If I've tried to do comedy, not too good at it. I guess my friends can attest to that. But have you had new group members who are like, "Wow, comedy! This is something I want to try out. This sounds awesome." And have they been able to get work out there and publish with you guys?
Well, yeah, we've actually had new members come in who may not have had any experience in comedy before, but they sort of, if you show up to the meeting, that's kind of a sign that you're willing to try it out anyway. And even from the people who it's sort of like the first time article, it usually ends up being pretty good. But also in the case, and it hasn't really happened yet, but we're open to it. If someone comes in and they have like literally zero comedy experience, they're just like, this is something I want to get into. We have a sort of condensed version of a book that I read over the summer. I forget the actual title, but it was written by a guy who wrote for late night TV for like 25 years. He'd won awards for it and everything. And the book is really super helpful in not just like how to execute comedy, but also in its like basic principles. And so we've got a very like condensed sort of Google Doc that we share with the members, and they can check that out whenever. And that's everything from like how the sort of like monologue jokes are done, which is basically like a longer version of a headline, and that's kind of how we operate. To how to like the best, like the proper order for a top 10 list, like where you want your funniest jokes, where you want the ones that are the weakest, just in order for it to hit the best. So we do have stuff like that, and we're always willing to work with people and talk with people. And hopefully the workshop process, once they do write an article, that sort of helps develop ideas and really take any given premise to its furthest extent.
Yeah, the Black and Blue Jay is really good at just like providing people with more experience. For example, Grant has a lot of late night comedy show experience, and he's actually worked with Funny or Die. And so you come to an environment where you have people who have more experience with what is funny. And for example, some people come in and they write articles where it might take a long time for a joke that doesn't have much of a punchline, and we can help them like throw in a few more, and we can help them realize, hey, shorter, faster, or maybe sometimes that punchline is really good and they should build up to it more. And it's just a good environment.
That's great. So actually, I'm interested in hearing from both of you what you said you had a little prior comedy experience. Where did your personal interests in comedy start from? What work have you done? Grant, if you want to kick it off.
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm like the class clown type, but I've always liked to make jokes, especially at the expense of other people, in a lighthearted, in a like nice but satirical, definitely way. And so that's something that's sort of been a part of me since I was young. I loved watching like comedy specials on TV, Comedy Central, stuff like that. And then once I came out to Hopkins, and first I was a physics major, but then I was a writing sentence major, and I had a bit more chance to sort of hone those skills. And over the past 2 years, I've worked with, I've interned out in LA, and I've met some cool people, be they like actual adults, I guess, out there, or other like fellow interns. And we've worked on stuff together. This past summer, I interned at Funny or Die, and we got to produce our own comedy short, which is still not up, but that's the editor's fault, not ours. Coming up soon. And I've done some like screenwriting. I've written a feature-length comedy, and so stuff like that where I get to sort of work out my funny bone as much as I can. But that's really my experience. And then I really appreciate the Black and Blue Jay because it gives me a chance to always be working on that, because that's something I do want to get into after school.
Great. And Dave, I know you've done a few comedy, some things in the area.
I love stand-up comedy. For as long as I can remember, I've watched stand-up comedy and listened to it in the car with my parents. And last summer, I found myself living around DC. DC is one of the biggest comedy. It has one of the biggest comedy scenes.
Yeah, they have a great scene.
And so I decided I would go try stand-up. I got the Comedy Bible by Judy Carter, and I read it. I bombed my first time really badly, but I also found a community of comedians who, again, were very helpful. And so I learned, and I started writing jokes. It was a natural development. So I think I was doing stand-up comedy 6 days a week at bars around DC, and I enjoyed it a lot. So it was something good I could bring back to the Black and Blue Jay.
Now, since you did stand-up comedy, I guess you said you were doing it 6 nights a week. Do you have any advice for anyone whoever is going out there for the first time, trying this out like you, on things to do, things not to do, what to be prepared for?
Don't be afraid to suck.
Yeah. Louis C.K. actually has a really good quote, and it is stand-up comedy. It goes, stand-up comedy isn't something that you can practice at home. You really have to go out and do it. And that's so true. You just have to go out and do it, and don't be discouraged if you don't do well, because you could do one set that kills one night, and then at a different place the next night you might get no laughs, and that's just how it is. But it's definitely like anything, just work hard at it. Like Chris Rock used to go to comedy shows and not even be able to perform, and he'd wait until 2 a.m.
Wow. Yeah. No, that sounds awesome that you both have developed this over the past few years. Now, I guess getting back to the Black and Blue Jay, because that is why we're here. Are there any like specific influences that both of you have felt from the outside, whether it be specific comedians, satirical journals, that are really integral in making the Black and Blue Jay what it is?
Well, in terms of the Black and Blue Jay itself, definitely our main influence is, of course, The Onion. The entire structure we have with the sort of the laugh test plus revisions and all that, that's basically aped entirely from when The Onion came to campus last year. I literally went in with a notebook and took notes on like the stuff they were saying, because I knew it would be helpful for this. So The Onion's great. Their headlines are amazing. And over the summer, they debuted sort of like a sister site called Clickhole, which makes amazing parodies of the sort of like BuzzFeed-style articles. And that's something we've been trying to work in. Onion-style headlines tend to work better. The Clickhole ones are way more clickbait-type articles where it's like you won't believe what number 2 did when he saw this. Mm-hmm. It's like a headline that really tells you nothing but leads you into the article. On a personal level, my experience with Funny or Die over the past summer was really integral, just because I got to see how a comedic company operates from the inside, and just being around a bunch of like funny people all the time is a good experience. David mentioned it a bit with stand-up comedy, but comedians are a very like buoyant group. They love to help each other out and sort of lift each other up, which can be a nice contrast from the fairly competitive Hopkins atmosphere. But in terms of comedians that I love, I will definitely say John Mulaney. His special New in Town, one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Although I've not heard good things about his upcoming sitcom.
Ooh.
Do you have any, also David, like specific influences you want to comment on, share?
I am a devout follower of the Colbert Report, and I am so sad that it's being put under pretty soon.
But he's moving on to bigger and better things, so he's done well.
That's true. That is very true. So I suppose sometimes I look at that and I think maybe I could write an article that followed the same strain of humor that he brought up. And the Black and Blue Jay tries to keep its subject matter related to Hopkins, but if there's something big politically happening, for example, we had an ISIS headline at the beginning of the semester that everyone knew what ISIS was, so we were able to write an article about it. It's just an example of how my viewing of the Colbert Report kind of helped us out with that.
Great. So in terms of the articles you guys have posted, do you have a favorite article that one of you or someone else has written thus far?
As much as I don't like to play favorites, there have been a couple that I have really, really enjoyed. For example, the ISIS headline that Dave just mentioned, that was JHU frantically trying to rename ISIS amid rising terrorist enrollment. That one I really liked, and that ended up getting our most hits of any article that we put up. And that was sort of, in part, that was engineered because as we published that article, we also had every member invite all their friends to like the Black and Blue Jay. So we sort of got like social media momentum and hit critical mass on that. Outside of that, there's a new article that just went up about the construction on North Charles Street being a performance art piece representing the futility of human life. And it's stuff like that that just really tickles my funny bone. I always feel that the best comedy is based on insight, like some... As small as it can be, like, fuck this Charles Street construction. If you can find a good angle to approach that insight, then that's where great comedy is born.
Mm-hmm.
I like the ISIS one a lot. I also enjoyed the one, it was a recent one about, what was it, white girl discouraged or upset that the Brody Cafe didn't have pumpkin spice lattes.
Mm-hmm. And they ended up getting all their pumpkin spice options in like the day that we put up that article. And I'd like to think we played into that somehow.
Yeah.
It's probably you're an integral part in them placing it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty funny. maybe we're having a bigger impact than we think we are.
No, definitely spreading through. Well, I think that did cover a lot. So obviously, thank you both. Thank you, Grant, and thank you, David, for speaking today. Yeah, of course. And like I said, you guys can obviously check out the Black and Blue Jay on Facebook. The Facebook page, is the Black and Blue Jay. Can also check out their Twitter, which is at Hopkins BnBJ. And in addition to that, you can go to theblackandbluejay.com to check out all of their articles. So thank you again to the Black and Blue Jay. This is Dan Adler. I'm reporting for the Charles Street News, and hope everyone enjoyed this talk. Thank you.